Wind River is a crime mystery thriller and the third part in the unofficial American Frontier trilogy. Directed by first-time director Taylor Sheridan, the film stars Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. It is basically this kind of crime mystery drama that revolves around the mysterious death of this Native American girl and what actually happened, how she ended up dying, and who was really behind it all. And I've got to be honest, ever since I first heard about this film over a year ago, I've been really interested in checking it out, because when Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen were doing kind of press interviews for Civil War last year, they first brought it up, and that's when I first heard about the film, that, you know, Taylor Sheridan was going to be doing this first film as a director. It was called Wind River. Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen were going to be in it, and then the more I heard about it, the more excited I got to check it out. And I could have seen it a couple of weeks ago, but I missed the screening, and I finally got the chance to check this movie out, and I had to say, the wait was definitely worth it. I absolutely loved this film. I thought it was really fantastic. And for me, I don't think this is just one of the best films of the year, but I think this was also one of the first potential kind of major awards contenders of the year so far. I mean, I'd also throw Dunkirk in there and potentially War for Planet of the Apes as well, but I think this is really the first kind of major awards contender of the awards season, if you will, because yes, it did come out kind of end of August, early September, and it's probably going to get brushed aside and forgotten about with all the films coming out October, November and December, but I really hope it gets a lot of love come awards season, because I think it was really great and it really deserves the recognition, I think, because with Sicario and Hell, High Water, they did get some love come the awards season, but they kind of got forgotten about. They kind of got brushed away, especially Sicario. That also came out end of August, early September, and that was really great. I think one of the best films of 2015, and it kind of got forgotten about. It kind of got brushed aside, because a lot of the films that come out October, November, December get all the attention. And a similar kind of thing happened with Hell, High Water. That got a little bit more love. I think it got Best Picture and a couple of other nominations, but it didn't really win a whole lot. And I really hope Wind River gets the recognition it deserves. I kind of feel like it's probably going to get brushed aside and forgotten about, similar to Sicario, but hopefully it does get a lot of love come award season, because I really do think it deserves a whole lot of recognition, because I thought this movie was absolutely fantastic. Now, getting to my positives for the film, I have to say the film did have a little bit of a shaky start, I felt, to begin with, and I felt like, oh, I hope this film kind of gets me engaged soon. But after a terrific kind of Silence of the Lambs-esque kind of shootout scene in a cabin, I was hooked, and from that moment on I think the film really stepped up again. It was almost like a completely different film, and I absolutely loved every second of it from that point on. And even though, you know, to begin with I felt like it had a little bit of a kind of iffy start, on reflection, when you look back at the beginning, you're like, you know, I think it did really work for them to start off a little bit more slower, and I think that's what I really like about this film on reflection. It was a little bit of a slow burner, and that kind of surprised me, because I thought it was going to be a little bit more kind of fast-paced, intense. But what I really liked about this film was that there were some kind of intense, dramatic moments, but then a lot of the film was kind of slow and moved at more of a kind of a more of a natural pace, if you want. And I kind of liked that. It wasn't just really crazy, kind of firing all the cylinders all the time. It kind of moved at more of a slower pace, and then when we did get an intense, dramatic scene, it was even more so, because there was a real build-up to that moment. And a lot of the film is really kind of building suspense until we get to this dramatic finale at the end, which I think really worked. And I loved how this film gradually built up suspense as it went along, and for me it really paid off come the end, because yes, it was a little bit of a slow burner, but when we did get to that kind of intense, dramatic finale, I think it really paid off. And also I love how this film was almost paying homage to Silence of the Lambs. I really do have a feeling that Taylor Sheridan was really kind of heavily influenced and inspired by that, just the whole kind of crime, mystery elements to this film, and it was very Silence of the Lambs-esque. And there's even a particular moment which I really like, which was like a direct homage to Silence of the Lambs, in this cross-cutting edit, in this transition between two scenes where it involves a knocking at the door, and there's a very similar moment to that in Silence of the Lambs, but instead of the transition involving a jump in place, it involves a jump in time instead, and I think that was really effectively done, and I really liked that moment. And also I really loved how it was kind of like a homage to that same kind of cross-cutting edit in Silence of the Lambs. I think that was really well done. And one of the things I like most about this film that really caught me off guard is that it was really kind of surprisingly emotionally compelling. I didn't think it was going to be as emotional as it was, But what I really liked about this film was that I was able to really get emotionally invested in the characters and the story, especially with Jeremy Renner's character and also Gil Birmingham's character, who comes back from Hell or High Water, also another Taylor Sheridan written film, and he did a really great job and made a real impression, just a small role. In fact, all of the actors in this cast delivered fantastic performances, particularly Jeremy Renner. I'm a big fan of Jeremy Renner, but a lot of the time he can come across as kind of the same in a lot of films where it's just like Jeremy Renner doing his thing, whereas in this film, I think it's one of the first times I've ever watched a film with Jeremy Renner in and actually not seen Jeremy Renner. He really kind of became the character he was playing, and it was really like watching kind of a masterclass in acting. He really kind of came across as like an actor's actor. Like, you're watching him and it doesn't feel like you're watching someone pretending. It felt like I was watching a real person conveying these kind of genuine emotions, and it was really a fantastic performance, I felt. And I think this is probably the best performance of his career so far, so I really hope he gets some love come award season. He probably won't, but I really hope he does get some recognition, because I think he delivered an incredible performance. And all the actors, as I said, Elizabeth Olsen, I love how she almost had a kind of a Jodie Foster, kind of a Clarice Starling kind of vibe to her character. Who she's kind of like this rookie FBI agent who gets sent in to deal with this case, and she had a very kind of Clarice Starling kind of vibe to her, and I really like what she did in this film, and I think she gave a really great performance as well. And also Gil Birmingham, as I mentioned, he only has a really small part, but I think he made a really big impression in the small role that he had, and again a very emotional performance that really got me engaged and really got me invested, and I just believed in the characters and the emotions, and I got so much more sucked in and invested in the story because it felt so much more real and so much more believable, and I found it genuinely really kind of emotional, and I got really invested in these characters and their exploits, and for me it made it even more effective when intense dramatic stuff did go down, because I was so much more engaged. And also, of course, I have to mention the directing by Taylor Sheridan. This was his first film as a director, and if you didn't know, you wouldn't have thought that, because a lot of the times when writers or whoever makes their jump as being a director for the first time, you can kind of tell it's their first time as a director. And although I think this film could have maybe even been even better and even more powerful and effective with a more experienced director, it didn't feel like I was watching someone directing for the first time. I think it was a real strong directorial debut by Taylor Sheridan, and obviously he does a fantastic job of the writing as well, like he did with Sicario and Hell, High Water, but I think it was really impressive from a directorial standpoint as well. It felt really strong, it felt very confident and capable and assured. Like I said, it didn't feel like I was watching someone directing for the first time, didn't really know what they're doing. It felt very confident, it felt very assured, and I think he did a really great job. I particularly like the transitions between certain scenes and how he cut between certain moments, and little things like that shows me that he's actually got some really good skills in directing. It wasn't just a boring, basic, bland, by-the-numbers directorial job. He actually did a really great job with this film, I thought. And like I said, I think it could have been even better maybe with someone else. But for the fact that this was his first time as a director, I think he did a fantastic job. And I think it was a real strong directorial debut, and I cannot wait to see what he does in the future. And I really hope he continues with directing, because not only is he a great writer, but I think he did also a really great job with the directing of this movie also. And lastly, I have to mention the score. It's not often I pinpoint something like the score, but even though it wasn't a really big, over-the-top, in-your-face score, I loved how the music in this film was kind of very subtle, but also very powerful and very effective at the same time. It kind of reminded me of Bambi, funnily enough, like the scenes when the intense, scary scenes when they're in the woods. It was very reminiscent of that for me, and I think the score really added a lot to this film, because like I said, it wasn't a big, showy, in-your-face, over-the-top score, but the music was really effective and it really added to the atmosphere and the feeling of this film. So when you're immersed in these scenes and watching these things go down, it makes it even more effective to watch, because it really adds a whole lot to the film, and that's what a really great score should do. It shouldn't just be there as an accompaniment to the film. It should really kind of enhance and almost improve the film, and the music really did that in this case. Like I said, it wasn't a big, over-the-top, showy, in-your-face score that really kind of caught you off guard and annoyed you. It was a real subtle but at the same time powerful and effective score that I think really worked. And that's pretty much it. I do have one little criticism, as I mentioned earlier. It's more of a nitpick really. I felt like I had a little bit of a shaky start and took a little bit while to get going, but as I said, in hindsight, looking back on the film, I think that really worked, because yes, it did start off a little slow and took a little while to get into it, but I really liked how they did that. It wasn't just kind of really fast-paced, intense, in your face from the get-go. They took their time and they built up to these kind of intense, dramatic events that transpired later in the film, and I think it was a lot more effective because of that. You know, if they'd just gone right in your face from the get-go, I don't think it would have worked as well, because it was a lot more quiet and a lot more held back to begin with, and they took their time to get into it. I think it worked a whole lot better because of that. So even though at first I was like, oh, this seems like a bit of a kind of shaky start, I hope I'm able to get into this. In hindsight, looking back on the film, I think it was the perfect decision to start off a little bit more slowly, and I really appreciate the fact that they took their time and they didn't just rush into it, they didn't just go crazy, fast-paced, intense, in your face from the get-go, because a lot of films tend to do that, but I like how this film held back and took its time to get into it. So really, it was more of a positive than a negative, so I don't really have any major negatives with this film. So overall, I really enjoyed Wind River. It's probably one of my top 10 favourite films of the year so far. It might get bumped down to the top 10, but as of right now, it is one of my favourite films of the year so far. I really hope it does get some recognition come the award ceremonies. It probably will get brushed aside and forgotten about, similar to what happened with Sicario. I mean, Hell or High Water did get a little bit more love. I'm hoping this will get some attention come award season as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does get completely forgotten about, because obviously we've still got October, November, December. But for me, this is the first kind of major contender of the award season so far. I think it was a really strong directorial effort from Taylor Sheridan, really well written, phenomenally acted, like Oscar-worthy performances, I think, all round. A really compelling, emotionally investing kind of crime mystery drama that I really loved, and for me really worked. Don't really have any major problems with it. So overall, I'm going to give Wind River 5 stars. And there we have it, that wraps up my review of Wind River. Have you seen the film yet? It's been out for a few weeks, so you probably have, and if you haven't, I definitely recommend checking it out, because I think it was really good and I really liked it anyway. So there we go. If you've seen the film, let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more, and if you missed my last film review, be sure to click over here to catch up on my last review, or perhaps down here to catch up on another one of my recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.